All right, welcome to episode 18 of the At Bat Baseball podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez, joined by none other than All-Star Miles Porter. How we doing, man?
Doing good, feeling good. It's trade day, it's deadline day, and I learned that I made the All-Star team. It's official, so it's a lot of entertaining stuff in the baseball world and in my baseball life right now. So it's cool time to be a baseball person.
No, yeah, hey, it's awesome, and like I said before, congratulations on the All-Star
Thanks, man.
selection. It's pretty sick. No matter what league you play in, I think it's badass to be an All-Star. You can say that you are. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
But yeah, you are also correct that it is trade deadline day today, so it's an absolutely insane day. And of course, we have a guest today which we'll talk about more later. But it's Jake Kosack. He's the host of the Bronx Zoo on TikTok and YouTube. He's a big Yankees fan. He got big on TikTok for interviewing Yankees fans outside of the stadium. So really excited to talk to that guy and
yeah,
get in his head about what the Yankees have done so far, including taking Scott Efros off our hands. So it's
yeah.
gonna be we're gonna have a lot of fun and definitely talk a lot about trades and stuff like that today. Miles, did you guys play this weekend though for the Jaguars?
Yeah. We played this weekend. We had three games. We lost the first two on Friday and Saturday, but we were able to finish out our weekend pretty strong on Sunday. Then last regular season games this weekend, and then the All Star game, then it's playoff time. So we're locked in, we're ready to get it going and ramp it up a bit.
Oh yeah, it's almost go time.
Yeah, yeah,
All right. So we'll start this week with the White Sox, who are 51 and 51. So they tied the Rockies in their 2-game series, and then they won a series against the Oakland Athletics, 2 games out of 3. Now it was a positive week in the sense of winning and the winning record and whatnot. Uh, Besides, they ended up losing game 1 of their Royals series on Monday. But
mhm,
what like do you think that they're finally taking advantage of their favorable schedule? Because like you look at it and it's really just I mean, and we'll preview what the upcoming week, but just the fact that they got the Rangers for a 4-game series. They're not a bad team, but they're definitely a team the Sox can take a series from. They face the Royals again for another series, then the Tigers. They
mhm.
got the they got a little stretch where they face the Astros, the Guardians, and the Orioles. But when they're winning series against the A's, I think that's huge, regardless of how that team has played this season,
Yeah.
because it could be a confidence booster regardless. Like, do you think finally they're doing it, or do you think it's just a little blip, and this 5-5 record to start the second half is again who the White Sox are?
You know what? And this is going to sound very, very unfortunate for me to say. It's kind of what the White Sox have been. 5-5 since the start. They've been a 500 team. So I think it's hard for me to say that they've been a different ball club because we have been seeing the same inconsistencies consistently. So what I'll say is that I think that there's definitely potential for them to take advantage of the schedule and keep going forward. But it'd be hard for me to sit here and say that I've seen something special out of them because sitting at 5-5, with this overall record of 51 and 51, we're pretty much in the same spot that we've always been. But there's a lot to take advantage here, especially with Kansas City and then playing Texas. There's a lot to take advantage of there. Sox just have to put it together, and we can't have our guys getting thrown out of the game.
Oh yeah, exactly. We'll get to that in a second because that was a big moment in that A series.
Yeah,
So in that the Colorado part of the schedule last week, the Sox were able to win one and lose one. Kopech shined in Colorado in game 1. He in that 2-1 win over Colorado. He had 5 1/3 shutout innings, and then in game 2, Kendall Graveman, he couldn't close it out, and the
yeah,
Sox ended up losing that 6-5. Um, so again, 1-1 in Colorado, I think, is a win. We always talk about Colorado and the fact that, like, it's unpredictable. So When you split a series there, that's a win.
Yeah,
It's as much as a win. So
yeah,
in the series versus Oakland, the Sox opened with a 7-3 loss. That was one of the big stories of that was Tim Anderson blowing up on the umpire. He went off after a strikeout call, and he went off on the umpire, and he made some contact, I guess, with his cap, with the umpire's cap, and he's gotten a 3-game suspension. So, and I think honestly, when it comes to that blow up a little bit, I think it's just a culmination of frustration when it comes to um, the White Sox season, and just their struggles overall. I don't, it's just I think it just boils. It's kind of like what happened with David Ross, right? Like him being thrown out a couple times in a row, like a couple games in a row. Like it's I think after a while you just get frustrated of regardless of how your team's playing, of just a losing, and I think that kind of boils is what it boils down. What did you get out of that Tim Anderson blowout?
yeah. I 100% agree, and I think that there was an at bat earlier in that game where it was a similar pitch that was called for a strike, and obviously he took that same pitch that was called a strike, or the very first pitch of that at bat. Yeah, there's definitely frustration right now. There's definitely a sense of, I think the Sox are starting to feel that sense of urgency now, especially that we're past the 100 game mark. There is, Tim is he's a very passionate player. He's a very honest player. Um, is that kind of an ugly moment? I think it is. I think it is. I think it's an ugly moment, but it's also a very honest moment as to how the White Sox are starting to feel in this moment. You know, I I understand the frustration of umpires. I understand that there are things, as a player you're trying to compete, and then when you're not getting a favorable call, it feels like that umpire or that call or whatever it is, there's something against you, as if you're not already battling for enough in that moment, as if it isn't already hard enough to hit a baseball and win games. So those emotions are real, but I'm hoping for the future that this is not something that happens again for Tim Anderson, because I think there's somewhat of a stigma a little bit around him, is kind of is like a mean player sometimes, which he isn't. He's just a very passionate dude. He plays with a lot of swag. He also plays with a lot of passion. So you know, uh, nothing too much to look into there. Just besides, moments like that don't happen too much more for any player in the MLB.
Yeah, and it's like at the end of the day, it's what you get with Tim Anderson. Like
Yeah,
I'm not mad about that. It's like with the type of player he is and his attitude, like it's who he is. So I'm not like that. That's
mhm.
definitely it's fine with me. I mean, it's I guess just the contact with the umpire that I guess is what pretty much got him the suspension. I think other than that he would have been fine. But that's
Yeah,
just the way the rules. No any type of contact. But yeah, so after that, and also that could have helped them in the series, maybe like kind of light a fire under them because they ended up
yeah,
winning the last 2 games
yeah,
of the series. In game 2, they actually rallied to beat the A's, and they walked off on a wild pitch. Adam Engel came in to score, and then in the finale, Dylan Cease does Dylan Cease things as he continues to dominate. He lowered his ERA to 2.01, which is just should be illegal. He has the best ERA in baseball since May 29th. Now check out these numbers. So the top 3 guys with ERA since May 29th is Sandy Alcantara at 1.98, Justin Verlander at 1.63, and then Dylan Cease is number 1 at 0.51. So that's I mean it's not even an ERA.
my
Um
gosh.
and then so in that finale of that series, Abreu and Eloy both homered. And one cool stat too I saw by Christopher Kamka, he tweeted out saying that the Sox are 16-3 when they hit multiple home runs. And we saw last year, I mean, how big the home run was for the Sox. And just this year hasn't been as much. They haven't been as much of um, of a home run hitting team. I think that kind of reflects on the record a little bit,
Yeah,
because the last year helped them out so much, and this year not as much as or in general. Um, Also, Gavin Sheets has looked a lot better at the plate.
yeah,
In his last 20 at bats, he's got an 1118 OPS. So hopefully for them, If they end up not getting a left-handed bat, because I saw Rick Hahn still say that they're looking to get a left-handed bat from the market before the deadline. Um, Gavin Sheets, if he heats up, I mean that's huge. So they're hoping that is the case. I'm sure. The Sox did make a trade yesterday on Monday. We're recording this on Tuesday at trade deadline day. Not a big one, but they got help in the bullpen. They got Jake Diekman from the Astros, and they got or excuse me, from the Red Sox. And they traded Reese McGuire. What do you think that trade does for the Sox? Obviously, they needed a bullpen arm. I personally still think that their biggest need is the left-handed bat.
Yeah.
Um, if Gavin Sheets is not, if he doesn't heat up, forget about Gavin Sheets for a second. But like, if the Sox leave the deadline with just this, that's got to be an L, right?
Yeah. It's it's a major L, and I like that that then they made some sort of attempt to kind of correct the bullpen a little bit, correct those arms a bit, because in a lot of games this year offensively, I'm seeing the Sox actually hit extremely well. It's a lot of the pitching that's been blowing it, aside from Dylan Cease and a few other players, Johnny Cueto, we know the guys on this team that have pitched well, whether they're in the rotation or coming out of the bullpen. They have a lot more to address. There's a lot more to address there pitching wise, and if that's all the White Sox are going to come out with this trade deadline at 12 o'clock on Tuesday at this moment, that's an L. You throw in the towel for the season. You're not going to succeed in your division, and you're definitely not going to succeed if you do make the playoffs or if you do make some sort of push. These are the arms need help. It's very plain and simple. So yeah, that'd be a major L for them if this is all they come out with. It helps a lot, but it's going to take maybe one or two more arms to really give that bullpen the push they need. Also take some stress off of these starters as well. So let's see what happens with that. But no, this should not be the only move that they make.
Yeah, and the thing is too is like they have there's a lot of options out there when it comes to like a bat off the market that I think the White Sox can afford. I know that their minor league system is not as good as it was maybe a couple of years ago. And obviously they're not willing to give up, their top guns from their minor league system, and it showed because obviously, I'm sure most people heard about the White Sox. They were one of the teams that attempted to trade for Shohei Ohtani over the last week. So I wonder what the Sox were not willing to give up. My guess is not only did they want minor leaguers, but obviously how good Shohei is. I'm sure you want developed talent already, and I'm sure like they wanted like Luis Robert or something like that, which I wouldn't be surprised. But and of course, if the Sox don't want to give him up, it makes complete sense. But I do like that the White Sox try to get him at least. And, like they make an effort to get a guy like that, just because. Because can you imagine if the White Sox put a guy in Shohei Ohtani? I mean, that changes Chicago sports, right?
It
Like
changes everything. Yeah.
yeah.
You got
So
a great arm, and then you have another amazing bat in your lineup. Yeah. Big difference there.
yeah, so
People,
like
very noble attempt though. Very noble attempt.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like at least, hey, I mean, no harm in trying there, but
Yeah.
definitely, there was a lot of guys that they could get on the market for left-handed bat, and like I honestly thought Vogelbach was going to be perfect for them because he cooled down from like how good he was at the early parts of the season, first couple months of the season. But he's still a nice power bat, a guy that's can work a walk and get a big hit for you. So I thought he was the guy the Sox were gonna try to get. I don't know if they ended up not trying, but obviously went to the Mets. Josh Bell was another guy that might have been a little bit of a heftier price, but Josh Bell, of course, and we'll get to it in a minute. But looks like hopefully for them that he's headed to the Padres in the Juan Soto deal. But yeah, so hopefully we're sitting here recording this at 12:22, just a few hours left of the trade deadline, and still a lot of pieces to go. I mean, plenty of players still available. So I'm sure next week's episode is going to be chock full with all the stuff that happens in the last few hours. And we'll use that as a transition to talk about the Cubs. Because as we sit here again, no deals have been done regarding the big fish with Contreras and Hap. But of course, we'll talk about that in a second as we go over their week first. So the Cubs come in 41-60. They won a series against the Pirates. They swept them. And then they lost the series versus San Francisco 3-1. It was nice to see them get another sweep and continue their winning streak. It was, I think, 6 games once they got to San Francisco, but it ended in game 1. It was just another week of competitive games for the Cubs. Like, I think that's as for a team and that they are where they are. Anytime you can compete for long periods of time is a win. So, and I think that's kind of what the Cubs have been like. So, like the record obviously doesn't reflect it, but they've at least fought. They've had a couple bad stretches, but nothing too bad. They're terrible, I should say. So yeah, after Nico Horner helped the Cubs get that 3-2 game 1 win, Keegan Thompson went 7 shutout innings to make it 6 straight wins for the Cubs, right? And Thompson lowered his ERA to 3.16, and he's got a fielder's independent pitching of 3.70, and a ERA plus of 1.33. So he keeps on rising in the Cubs ranks of pitching. And I think what's ultimately what's been his little bit of his Achilles heel has just been walks. But he's as long as he is starting to lower them and work on that, then the sky's the limit with that guy because he's been great for us all year.
Yeah.
Alex Wood no-hit the Cubs into the 7th inning in that game, and Patrick Wisdom hit a 2-run home run, but the Cubs ended up losing 4-2. Justin Steele had an unlucky start. He went 3 innings, gave up some runs, but it was just some defensive mistakes by the Cubs and just like balls going the wrong direction. It was just a tough start overall. In game 2, Stroman concluded his July with an ERA of 0.89. And he pitched 6 shutout innings, and the Cubs ended up getting the win 4-2. Wisdom homered again. I mean, that guy loves hitting in San Francisco. I'm sure he's got quite a few home runs. I haven't checked how many home runs he got in San Francisco, but I remember last year when we went on a run last year, I believe he had like 3 home runs in a series in San Francisco. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which is funny because it's a ballpark, obviously, that, where people don't hit home runs there.
Right. Yeah.
And then Drew Smiley allowed 5 runs in the 5-4 Cubs loss on Saturday. They nearly come back in the 9th, weren't able to do it. And then in the finale on Sunday Night Baseball, the Cubs just got dominated by Carlos Rodon. He went 7 clean innings, 10 strikeouts. Probably could have gone more, but he's another guy that might get traded, so they pulled him. Just what are your thoughts on the overall week the Cubs had, and just like positives there? You got to pick up the positives there. It's like
Yeah.
Stroman, he's pitching well. Keegan Thompson continues, to do his thing. Just what are your thoughts on the last week for the Cubs?
Yeah, I mean, they're fighting, they're staying in games. Obviously it's hard for this team to finish just because of who we are as of right now. But I think there are little glimpses here and there of how talented this team has the potential to be in even as soon as like a year or two. You gotta take it for what it is with the Cubs. But if there's one thing that I do really love about watching these guys day in and day out, and even with especially just going back to that Pittsburgh series, is that when they feel good about themselves and they're playing with confidence, they're one of the most fun teams to watch in baseball. So it's just a matter of you're kind of really just playing out the rest of this year. There aren't too many series that Cubs fans can look at it and take in too much. There's nothing that there's a lot to digest, but at the same time, it is something that some of these series you have to take with a grain of salt. This team is in a rebuild. They are definitely in a rebuild, and there's a lot of figuring out who's going to stay where's Wilson going to go, where's Ian going to go, who else is going to go, is David Robertson going to get sent somewhere? There's a lot of movement on this team right now. This is a team that's very staggered, but they're staggered in a way that they are trying to build towards something in the future. So for them to play as well as they've had over the last 10 games, if I'm correct, I think it's 7-3 over the last 10 games. You know, that's another positive to look at. This team is going to be just fine in the future. You know, right now we kind of have to take every game for what it is, take every little moment, every good thing with a grain of salt with Nico Horner and Keegan Thompson, and also embrace the bad games that happen because they're just learning every single day. I think David Ross has done a wonderful job with what he has had to this point.
Yeah, it's like if the Cubs end up like having a good second half, for example, I mean, it just gives a little bit of a boost for them when going into next year, and maybe that wakes up the front office. Maybe that's like something that will give them more um of a backing to like go out and spend or whatever, because obviously there's been rumors that the Cubs go out there get a Xander Bogaerts or something like that. So who knows, maybe that'll influence it if the Cubs can have a positive second half, and that could be a game changer. When it comes to trades, there's a lot of trades actually that came up in the last week or so for the Cubs. Nothing groundbreaking. I think the biggest one, probably the Scott Efros one that I mentioned before, but we'll start from the beginning. So Chris Martin, the reliever, was traded to the Dodgers for Zach McKinstry. And it was, honestly, it's one of those deals where like Zach McKinstry is a young guy who, has a fresh start now. He's struggled over his first 3 seasons in the big leagues. He can play multiple positions. He's a Swiss Army knife. So, if he needed a fresh start, and he could be our utility guy, then that's a positive. So we also traded Dickson Machado to the Giants. They needed a shortstop after injuries to Thairo Estrada. Take a moment to just give Thairo Estrada some credit, because this guy's had a tough week. First he got hit with the Carlos Rodon bat, and then he gets hit in the head by a pitch for Mark Leiter Jr. So it's been a rough go for Thairo. So hopefully he can come back sooner rather than later. They also have had injuries to Brandon Crawford, and the Cubs ended up receiving 30-year-old right-handed pitcher Raynel Espinal. So that's interesting trade. We'll see how that goes for either team. I'm sure that was more of a deal that like needed to happen rather than that they've been working on. It was probably like, here, we'll give you this, and they needed that. And Dickson Machado is just the guy that I feel like has been in the minors for like ever, and like has barely he's got a couple chances here and there, but not sure why it's taking forever for him to get more shots in the big leagues. But obviously, if he's if he likes playing shortstop, we got Nico Horner obviously there, so it makes sense, I guess, in that aspect. And of course, the big one of the weekend was Scott Efros traded to the Yankees for their number 7 prospect in Hayden Wesneski. So so the number 7 prospect, and he's a guy that probably will be a starter. What do you think that deal? So a lot of people question that deal because Efros at the end of the day has 5 years left of control, right? But the way I see it is he's 28 years old. So I don't think I mind giving up that 5 years of control, because at the end of the day, we get a total of 7 years with Wesneski. What do you think that trade does? I mean, it's less about what it does for the Cubs, because for the Cubs, it obviously gives us like a prospect that we don't necessarily know that much about. But that trade for the Yankees, I guess, in that aspect, like or a better question would be, what do you, if you're talking to a Yankees fan, and which we will in a few minutes, what's Scott Efros? What is he going to give to the Yankees?
He brings a lot of depth to that bullpen. A lot of those arms have been looking tired over the past week and a half or so. I think Efros kind of gives more depth to that bullpen. He pitched incredible. He pitched incredible when he was here in Chicago. He pitched incredible when he was pitching for the Cubs. That's another arm to kind of take the load off of some of these starters that have really had a tough time this year. So he's going into New York very confident. He's going into New York with his stuff looking very good. That does a lot for the Yankees, because it's for them the offense and the pitching has not really been something that's been needed to be addressed. But lately, I think it's just been a matter of just some of the arms getting a little bit tired and the offense kind of trying to keep up with it. So I think Efros is coming into is heading into New York with a pretty good mindset, feeling good about himself, feeling good about his stuff. So I think that does wonders for the Yankees, and I think it's actually going to make a pretty big difference for them, especially with these last 2 months of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's a heck of a reliever. He's got some of the best stuff in the game.
Yeah,
So um, definitely he's going to be a big asset for the Yankees, and I think that it's just going to be another guy that we'll see make an impact for the Yankees in the postseason. Um, and it's just funny seeing like all these guys from the Cubs getting traded to like other teams helping them win. It's like they got Rizzo now, they got Efros. So
yeah. You're welcome, New
it'll be
York.
yeah, right. So yeah,
Same thing
it'll
with the
be
Mets. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed Javi last year too.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the Cubs they got 3 games at St. Louis, and then they got 3 games where they host Miami. Which is funny because I told you this before. I'm going to Miami this weekend, and the Marlins are coming here. It's like we're switching spots. But I was like looking at the schedule. I was like, hey, like I was watching when I first bought my tickets. I was like, hey, maybe I'll go catch my Miami game on like Sunday or something. And I was like, what are the odds that the weekend I go, these dudes are
Uh,
playing at Wrigley?
they're playing.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
crazy.
But looking ahead to this week, it's a couple interesting matchups, right? Because the Cardinals are a team that looking for a spot in the postseason, and honestly, so are the Marlins. Still, they're still
Hmm.
in the wild card race as much as they've
Yeah.
gone down a little bit. Yeah. What are you looking forward to this weekend, and what do you think of these 2 matchups?
Whew, they're. I think they're about to go into they're about to play a Cardinals team that is very very hungry, and throughout the entire year, I think the Cardinals have always been on the cusp. Um, I feel like offensively they should be one of the best hitting teams in baseball, and I Juan Soto doesn't work out, but I don't feel that they have lost with that and everything that they were gonna give up and what the Nationals wanted. Yeah, this is the team that's gonna cut. They're gonna come out swinging. They're gonna come out hitting. It's gonna be difficult playing there in St. Louis. Um, Cubs just got to really just hang in there. Kind of like what I said with a few of the other series. Keep the ball out of the air. I think the Cubs defensively have actually been fairly solid in a lot of games that I've seen them, aside from some of the mistakes that are made in San Francisco. Um, Keep the ball in the air. Try to keep the ball on the ground. Don't miss up. And when Miami comes to town, take advantage of you know not too evenly matched, but like two very similar teams kind of at the moment coming into Wrigley and just come out as the better team. That's really all the Cubs can do right now. I think it's just a matter of playing things out and just trying to feel good about something going forward. So finishing up these last 2 months strong.
Yeah, that's the main goal, right? Is just finish 2022 on a higher note than you started it,
Yep.
and we'll see what happens. All right, so we'll move on now to Major League news, and a lot to talk about. I mean, a lot of trades, I should say. It's just have
Yep.
happened over the last week, and we'll start with Luis Castillo to the Mariners. So this one was super surprising to me, and
Yep.
also super stacked when it comes to what the Mariners gave up. I don't know. I think Mariners are really going for it, and I don't as much as trust me. I want the Mariners to succeed. Those AL West teams, besides the Astros, nothing against the Astros anymore. I'm like, whatever, it is what it is. They're going to win the division, right? But I want teams like the Angels, teams like the Mariners to have some kind of success. Um, but at the end of the day, I still don't know if this quite puts the Mariners in a spot where they could contend for a World Series, right? I think that's what the move. I think this is what the move, or sorry, excuse me, this is the move they made to make that statement to say, hey, we're going to contend for something in the postseason. But I still don't think I don't know how they match up with a team like the Yankees and the Astros. You know what I mean? So and I mean and to be honest, we've seen like in the past week or so they've faced the Astros in a couple series, and you just see the difference between these two teams. It's just not there. Um, so the question I think I had was, did they give up too much to get Luis Castillo? But regardless of that, I wanted to get your take on just in general them getting him. is obviously going to help them immediately. But yeah, what do you think of that trade?
Yeah, I think I don't feel like they've given up too much. I feel like if you're gonna, fully send it now. The Mariners over the past, few years have always been kind of a team that has been like we go into the season and they're very good, and then it kind of falls apart, in the later half of the year. I think Luis Castillo kind of helps this team finish. I think he helps them finish a little bit better. Um, obviously he's once every 5 days, so every 5 6 days. So there's games in between that have to be won as well. But I think he has a lot of depth. He has a lot of innings. He can go deep into games. His stuff is nasty. Now I think when the Mariners do play these teams that you mentioned, they're going to be able to compete a little bit more. But hopefully during these series, he's scheduled to pitch. I really like him on this team, but like you said, I don't think that puts them over the top just yet. I think they're maybe like a move or two away from really solidifying, a chance going forward. So let's kind of see how today plays out. I'm hoping that they do maybe add another bat, maybe another arm or two. Um, because like I said, the Mariners have always been kind of a team that's just they're right there. They just missed that push to finish, that push to really get over the hump. But this is a step in the right direction, and they got time to still make some important moves. But if this is the only move that they make, I do not think that this is like going to be a huge difference maker for them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, I think hopefully they'll be able to get another bat or something to help them out in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. I'm sure it is going to help them, and it is going to be a big deal. But yeah, I mean, and hopefully it works out for them, just because it's the Mariners. Just get to the playoffs, right? It's like I
Yeah.
think this was another move too that. Regardless, they're trying to get there. You know what I mean? And then once you get there, anything can happen, right? So it's a positive regardless. But I was just kind of pondering on it for a while. Just kind of like, oh, what do they give up for him? So, but also doesn't surprise me with Jerry DePoto is the guy who just always is wheeling and dealing is the definition of wheeling and dealing in the majors.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, so we'll see what happens. Other trade deadline deals that happened was Frankie Montas to the Yankees. That was a big deal because the Yankees needed another starter. And they got their man,
Yeah.
and it's the Yankees have they also gotten Benintendi.
Yeah.
So they've really boosted their shot, their chance, I guess, what they have over the Astros. What did you think about that move, and what does it do for them as a whole? And
It's another.
I'm gonna cut it right. Sorry, I'm gonna cut it right because we got a minute 30.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah.
So I'll come back, and then then you could just start fresh and answer
Cool.
that.
Cool.
All
Cool.
right, bet. Oh, here. All right, bet.
Yeah. So I think Frankie Montez adds a lot to that rotation in general. Kind of going back to what I was saying about Efros. I think that is some of those arms a little bit tired. They had been the Yankees have been going pretty hard, pretty much on all cylinders for the first part of this season. Um, he helps finish. He's gonna bring a lot of innings. He's gonna bring a lot of quality starts. So I really like Montez going to the Yankees. Along with Efros, I think they've bolstered their pitching. I think that they are fine exactly where they are offensively. So I think this kind of just solidifies a few more things for them in terms of just kind of just finishing as solid as possible. So I really like Montez going over there. And so I think the Yankees are pretty. I think they're pretty set. They get an A+ from me on the season and an A+ from me as the moves that they made. So I like where the Yankees are heading.
Yeah, I mean these moves. I mean, if you didn't think that the Yankees had a chance at World Series before, they definitely have a shot definitely now to compete with the Astros. And the thing with that also is the fact that Montes has great numbers against the Astros. Has always had great numbers against the Astros, and he's got great experience against them. So, in a series, I bet you and I guarantee you that Montes will pitch twice. So, again, cannot stress enough how much a Astros Yankees series would be to watch in the postseason. So hopefully that happens. So we will see. A couple other deals that happened. Josh Hader went to the Padres. Um, Taylor Rogers went to the Brewers, and then Austin Riley signed a 10-year deal. I think upwards of 250 mil. Joe Musgrove signed an extension, a 5-year extension with the Padres. But one more deal I wanted to talk about before we get to our interview is the one that's actually happening right now. So Juan Soto has reportedly been traded to the Padres in, I believe it's like a 6-player deal, 7-player deal. But it's Josh Bell and Soto going to the Padres. With the trade, also the what goes to the Nationals includes Eric Hosmer, C.J. Abrams, and multiple other top prospects. Now, what's happening now is that Eric Hosmer rejected the trade to Washington, is official now, and he will not be part of the deal of the Soto deal. So he kind of like broke that deal right as of right now, but the deal could still go through. Now the Padres are still are actually wondering what they're going to do with Hosmer because he's owed $39 million from 2023 to 2025. So they got to figure out what they're going to do with him, where they're going to
Yeah,
dish him off to. And yeah, I don't exactly quite know where that's going to go to, but most likely it looks pretty much guaranteed that Soto's going to go to the Padres, but it's kind of like what it's going to look like type thing.
yeah,
But yeah, adding him and Josh Bell, I mean, this is colossally like this is crazy.
yeah.
So I want to hear your thoughts on what this deal does for the Padres.
Oh gosh, this is the Padres are really they're really fully sending it. Now there's details that you mentioned just now that do change things a little bit, but I think I really respect the Padres for um noticing that, like, hey, you know what? We are very good offensively, but we still need a little bit more. Now, I'm still not too sure about the status of Fernando Tatis. So I'm still pretty unclear about that. But a lineup with Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, and we'll see what goes on with there with Eric Hosmer and Josh Bell. That's a very interesting detail in itself. There's no reason why this team shouldn't really give the Dodgers a run for their money, because I really do like them from the pitching standpoint. I think defensively they're going to be even better than they've been. So I think once the details are figured out, it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of plays out. But I really respect the Padres organization for just pretty much full sending it. What do you have? What do you have to lose at this point? Get Soto, get this bat, get this defensive player to help you, make something special happen. The rest of August and September and going into October. I like it. I like it a lot. And as for the Nationals, shame on you.
Yeah, I mean that's it looks like they tried, but they tried a little too late when it comes to just offering this man money and doing all this. Like they waited for the relationship to kind of be broken for them to kind of
Yeah,
like go for it. It's what it sounds like. Um, yeah, I mean the deal having Soto on the Padres is, I mean that lineup that already included Machado and Tatis when he's healthy, but like having Machado, Soto, Tatis, Josh Bell, like not to mention guys like Cronenworth, it's unbelievable, and I think it really puts them neck and neck when it comes to like playing against each other. It puts them up there with the Dodgers in my opinion because they have three legitimate All Stars, MVP candidates, and all on one team. So it'll be really something to watch. And just like I said about the fact that um that I want an Astros Yankees postseason series, we need another Padres Dodgers series with everyone fully healthy,
some
and
of the best
because some
baseball
of the yeah
that can
exactly.
possibly take place is Dodgers Padres fully healthy.
Exactly. All right, we'll end our rest of the league talk right there. We might get into a little bit more though with Jake Kosack. He's the host of the Bronx Zoo. So we'll cut to our interview portion of the podcast, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome to the interview portion of the At Bat Baseball podcast. We are here with Jake Kosack, who is the host of the Bronx Zoo, which you can find on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Jake also has 30,000 followers on TikTok, which is where I first came across him. Thank you for coming on, Jake. I really appreciate this, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. No, we have a lot to talk about. We were talking about it before we came on is the fact that, it's being the trade deadline. Got a lot to talk about on that end. And we'll ask you a few questions about that. But first, I want to kind of get to know you, man, and kind of like, the whole Yankee part of you. Obviously, that's, a huge Yankee fan. So I think everyone has their own story of how they became a fan of their team, man. So I want to know what your story is for the Yankees.
Absolutely. So born October 11th, 1996. I think that says it all right there. My dad, we were talking about this the other day. He said I was at 2 weeks old, not falling asleep watching the World Series. I didn't fall asleep. He told me this. We were talking about the other day. He said you were up, and he remembers it. He said you didn't close your eyes. You were watching the screen. And just basically my dad, my grandpa, my grandparents are from the Bronx. I wasn't born and raised in the Bronx. I was a little bit north of New York City, but close enough where I'd always go to the stadium. My dad, giant Yankee fan. My grandpa was an NYPD officer, so sometimes he'd be stationed outside Yankee Stadium. Grew up in the Bronx, so he giant Yankee fan. My grandma and her mom were a block away from the stadium, so every time they heard a home run was hit, they heard the roar of the crowd. So I mean, it's basically in my family. We love baseball. We love the Yankees. And I don't know, when I was, 4 years old, it really stuck. I mean, everyone loves baseball to a degree. I mean, it's our country's pastime. It's something that is ingrained in every single one of us in some way. But for me, I wasn't a star player. I knew from a young age I could play baseball good. I wasn't never gonna be the shortstop of the New York Yankees. I knew that going in at like 8 years old, but I knew that I loved this team more than anything else. And that was no denying it. If you knew me in elementary school, I still have the shirts. I wore a Yankee shirt every single day to school, every single day. My mom would say, "Change it up, Jake. Why are you wearing a Yankee shirt?" I said, "Why? It's what I love." I kept every one of those shirts so my son could wear them too. So, yeah, I grew up with Derek Jeter, Mariano, Jorge. I mean, this was the core four. This was the dynasty. And even watching the captain recently, it's kind of like going back in my brain, and it's bringing back what I loved about this team. And that was just a constant escape from the world, from everything going on around you. When you watch baseball, when you watch the Yankees, you're brought to a realm that no one else can bother you in. No one can distract you in. You're in like pure bliss is the way I describe what it's like for me watching a Yankee game. And as I got older, it didn't fade away. Sometimes guys get older, girls get older, they lose that love of the game, and it's gotten stronger in the last couple of years for me. And I mean, I think it should be right here. I wore this Yankee necklace every day of my life.
There you go.
Ever since I was 10 years old, my parents gave it to me. And that's because I knew I wanted to work for the New York Yankees. Some degree, some aspect of it. I told my dad I'd sleep at Yankee Stadium. So that's basically where the love started. My family, it's a family game. So.
Yeah, and then also like I think the Bronx Zoo is also just a great idea though too. Also, just like I feel like it could start something where like it can inspire other guys to do that, to like go out there, to talk to their fans outside of their home ballpark. How did that come about? And like just in general, how did that come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually went to college. Like I said, I knew I wanted to work for the Yankees. I was a unmotivated high school kid and college kid. I had no aspect of me that, of course, my family would say, "Oh, you always had the potential," but insecurities, all that stuff. I was overweight. I'm a huge Rocky fan. The Rocky franchise, huge Rocky fan. And it was sophomore year of college, and I ended up watching Rocky one night. I had a huge point. I was, the doctor just told me I was actually obese. I was just not doing good in any aspect of life. And I'm watching Rocky run up the steps. And for some reason, I rewind it. My whole life, same with the Yankees. I loved Rocky. I'm rewinding him going up the steps, watching it over and over again. And the next morning I woke up and I lost 70 pounds. And in a span of 4 months, I just completely changed my life, everything, motivation, outlook on life, physical aspects of life. And from there, I just really got motivated. I started working for a company as an intern, Steiner Sports, which is big in New York. It was a memorabilia firm that did stuff with the Yankees, and unbelievable experience as an intern in college. Got to work with the Yankee players, meet athletes, all this stuff. Then I graduated and got a job at a consulting firm just for like 9 months or so. And I said to myself, it kind of really started to click that I wanted to work in front of a camera. I did theater growing up, actually, for about 20 years. I was huge into sports and did theater. I always thought I was like Troy Bolton from High School Musical. And I loved, I was into theater. I liked acting. I liked film. And I was like, man, how can I piece all this stuff together? How can I take everything I like and make it one thing? So I ended up getting a job at TMZ as a reporter. And I was one of those guys on the streets with a camera, going up to people. And I really focused on TMZ sports. And I was getting interviews with Derek Jeter, Michael Jordan, all these guys, and loved it. And it was a great experience. And then the pandemic happened. Ended up getting a job at another cable news network. And one day I got sent out and I was asked to go do when you take the mic and you ask people questions on the street, like in like a basic camera on a tripod format. Didn't want to do it. I'm like, this isn't my job. I'm a producer. I'm not a reporter here. And I had a Yankee shirt on and I was standing on 50th Street and First Avenue. And I'm in the corner. And this one gentleman who I never know who he is, but it changed my life forever. So I want to thank him. He walked by me and I asked him, hey, sir, can I ask you a question? And he was like, about the Yankees? And I said, no, it's about something else. He goes, nah, then I don't want to talk. And literally in that moment, I went, wow, that's a cool idea. That's really cool. That would be fun. And I ended up going home, and I don't think anyone saw the vision I had. My family, biggest support system I could ever ask for. They would support me in whatever I did. And that's true. My mom, my dad, my sisters, grandparents, they would support me if I wanted to run across the country. But I knew in my head, it wouldn't make sense until I started doing it. So I ended up putting it together in my mind. I piece it together. I had a couple names that I was trying to circle around for what I wanted to name the show. And I said to myself, what makes sense? What are Yankee fans' nicknames? Like, what are we, bleacher creatures? That's so used. What's something I can do? And I just watched The Bronx is Burning, which was an old show from like the early 2000s about the 70s Yankees. I'm like, man, the Bronx burn would be kind of cool. Something like that. Try and tie in the best borough, the Bronx. And I'm like, how can I piece this together? And then I'm doing some research and I'm reading about, I always knew the Yankees were called the Bronx Zoo. I'm like, damn, that's a cool name. The Bronx Zoo. Like, that's what we are. We're passionate animals that go crazy, right? And I day by day, I just started building it in my mind of what I wanted to make it, what I thought it could be. And I've coined it since the beginning. I mean, there's been tons of man on the street segments done in some degree in the news since the early 70s. Like, it's just been a thing. And I mean, there's other brands that do it, like Side Talk's a great brand. I didn't know about Side Talk until after I started the Bronx Zoo. I didn't see anyone doing anything like this. And even I've seen on the street stuff, but I knew in my head from the beginning that no one has ever done a show about one team like this. And I've coined it the first of its kind sports fan interview show. And from that moment on, I went out there with my best friend, Jeff. He was willing to come out, be my field producer for the day. And it's just grown tremendously in 10 months,
That's incredible. So like, how much do you enjoy just from one Yankees fan talking to other Yankees fans, just talking about the result of a game, opinions about player? Because I know, because it's pretty known that New York, you guys are a very passionate fan base, and you hold your players accountable, and when they're doing great, you also let them know as well.
Yep.
Tell me how much you enjoy this, man. How fun is it to just have these conversations on the streets with other fans?
Well, I could tell you, I started it last September. Did 4 episodes, including the wild card, and they weren't in town. So what I did was like, I got to do something special. I mean, this is still the beginning. I went around the streets of the Bronx. Literally, just there's no Yankees in town. Let me just walk around the Bronx. I went to Fordham. I went to Arthur Avenue, which is our version of Little Italy. Went to the actual zoo, and I'm walking around. And it was that night I really realized like people like this idea. No one knew who I was. No, in the beginning, no one knew what I was doing. Like, what is this? And even still, I'm out on the street in front of Yankee Stadium on 161st Street, and people are coming up, screaming the Bronx Zoo, and I'm glad that it's not, yo, what's up, Jake? It's what's up, Bronx Zoo. Like, we created a face of us. And when I say that it's not my show, it's our show, there's tons of talking heads on television that talk about baseball. But when I can go out there and bring us together in a way that's not been done before, I'm going there tonight. I'm excited to go down. I'm excited to go and do it because I love it. Like you said, talking baseball, talking trades. This is stuff that we do. You do, I'm sure. I'm sure you guys were texting last night when Trey Mancini got traded, when Frankie Montez got traded. Like, that's what we do. But there's never been, like, I tell my mom and my dad all the time, the thing I'm most proud of is the fact that when you look at my TikTok page, it's not just my face. It's faces of like hundreds of people from all over the world, all over the country, different backgrounds, different jobs, different places that they live. And you look at my page and it just shows what the Yankee fan base is. And when you see it, it's people that come together and have fun for 3 hours a night. And like I said, pure bliss. So, I mean, I'm literally having the time of my life. I literally couldn't explain it anymore. I'm working on average, 16 hours a day because I do all the editing myself. I do all the marketing myself, all the social media. I have 2 great field producers, Joe and Matt, who are out there with me filming. But once, we aren't filming, I'm home and I'm doing this nonstop. And there's no partying. There's no Friday night clubs. There's no, days at the beach. It's all the Bronx Zoo until this gets to where it belongs.
That's awesome, man. I mean, yeah, just the way you put it, and the thing is too, is like, I like that. And like I said before, that we're a Chicago based show. So I think like us being, me and Miles, we're both Cubs fans. I think we can relate in the sense of like the passion we have for our teams is ridiculous. And they're different kinds of passions, which I love. I love the difference between like a Yankees type thing and like the Cubs type thing. Because obviously you guys,
I love Wrigley Field.
oh, there you go. There you go.
There you go. There you go.
Appreciate it.
I'm with
I know
you.
I'm working on getting to Yankee Stadium because I actually have one of my good buddies. He's he's diehard Yankees fan, born here though. But I'm telling you right now, like he is like, I think if you guys met each other, you guys would get along just fine. Because even though he's not straight up from New York, like this dude's like he lives and dies, bro. Like when the Yankees lose, like
absolutely,
you feel it.
Absolutely.
So but yeah, no, shifting now, I think kind of like I want to get your thoughts on like the latest Yankee stuff, because I mean obviously one of the best teams in baseball, if not the best team in baseball, and we talk about them a lot on our pod, and just all the moves that they made, and Aaron Judge, because who doesn't love Aaron Judge? So yeah, how do you feel about the Yankees like kind of heading into the last 2 months of the season? Obviously, working off the deals that they've made up to this point, and maybe they're not done. Who knows, right? So obviously you got Benintendi, Montas, Efros, and like how do you feel about the Yanks? Heading into October and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I went in, and I think we're all going to be in mutual agreement this year. There was only one move that I felt the Yankees desperately needed to make in the offseason. And a lot of people disagreed. We did need a shortstop, and IKF was the best option. I believed in that. But there was one move that if we didn't make, I didn't see us being a championship contender, and that's Anthony Rizzo. I truly believe that from the beginning, from Chicago. I'm sure you guys understand. He did amazing for us last year, but what he brings to a baseball club, I think, was unmatched. And I saw it in 2 months. Anthony was always my favorite player that didn't play for the Yankees. So when we got him, I was ecstatic. And I knew that he was the guy we needed. I didn't want Carlos Correa. my feelings on the Houston Astros from 2017 are well known and well documented. So I didn't want Correa. I was interested in Seager, but not for that price. I thought that was kind of ridiculous for the injuries that he's been through. And I knew that IKF was a great move, and I liked Josh Donaldson. I knew Gary Sanchez was valuable. It's kind of sad to see how he declined, because I will always have a sentimental value to Gary, considering what he did for us when he first came up. But Rizzo was important, and I knew in the beginning we'd have a good year. Obviously, they shocked the baseball world by how well they've played, and that's huge contributions to the moves that Cashman made. Cashman's, I think, one of the most underrated executives in the history of baseball. Yes, he has the money, but the best moves that Cashman has ever made were non-money related. They were trades at the deadline, specifically at the deadline. I go back to Alfonso Soriano, Bobby Abreu, Ichiro, Chase Headley, 2015, gets a call, comes from San Diego, gets a walk-off base hit the first night he's here. So it's things like that that I think of when I think of Cashman and the moves he makes. I wanted Benintendi and I wanted Castillo. We got Benintendi. Castillo obviously went to Seattle, but Frankie was the next best option. I think those were phenomenal moves. You got Trevino and Efros, bullpen arms with Michael King down, who was an all-star in my opinion and didn't get there. But we've been blessed with injuries this year, not to have that many compared to recent years. And I don't want to say that and jinx it, but compared to recent years, we were very injury prone in the first half. This year, Stan's on the 10-day DL. He comes back, the IL. This weekend he comes back. But I love the moves we made. I know that I'm looking at the clock. We got 3 hours and 45 minutes. I still think there's one more major move to be made in the pitching rotation. Either if it's a Rodon from San Francisco. I personally think Carlos and Jock Peterson would be a great move in one package deal where you trade Joey Gallo at the same rate. One thing I'll say from the Bronx Zoo perspective, I never bash players. I never go on my page. Opposing teams, absolutely. Most of the time, it's in good humor, unless it's the Astros. But the Yankees,
or the Mets, right?
The Mets spectators, most of all. There's no such thing as a Mets fan, just Mets spectators. But I try and keep it very respectful. Of course, we touch upon some topics that could be kind of funny sometimes, but I will never bash from a young age. Correlated back to where we started. I've never booed a Yankee. I would never boo a Yankee. That made no sense to me. Why would you boo your own guy? It just never made sense to me. I get that, we care, but I always want to support him. So when it comes to Joey Gallo, I wish him the best wherever he ends up tonight. I do think he will be moved in the next couple hours, but it's not because I just want to ship him out. It's just, I think that he'll be one of the guys that gets, and I think he can figure it out somewhere else. I do think in a smaller market. I mean, he played in Arlington. That's not New York City. So those are the moves I think that will happen. I think one of the greatest moves in baseball history happened about 2 hours ago. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about that.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, and before we even move forward, I love hearing your passion for the Yankees, and I grew up a few blocks away from Wrigley Field, so I was basically bred into being a Cubs fan, but I'm a baseball fan first. I want to know your opinion about Aaron Judge and what he does for the city of New York, what he does for you Yankees fans. How important is he to you all, and do you want to see him extend and stick around, and what would that mean for you all?
Yeah. So I think the best way to put it is I put out a video the other day that got a lot of attention about someone asking if I would trade Shohei Ohtani for Aaron Judge. Now, I'm not blind. Shohei Ohtani is one of a kind. There will never be another like him, maybe for another 100 years, like since Babe Ruth. He is a phenomenal, arguably the greatest baseball player on the planet. But I said no, I would not. And the reason I say that is because when you think about the New York Yankees, the legacy that we've had, yes, Babe Ruth was traded to the Yankees. I understand that, but he was the face of the Yankees. And when you think of the face of the franchise, you went from Babe Ruth to Lou Gehrig to Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Thurman Munson, who was the captain. A lot of people outside of New York don't understand the value that was held in him. And same with Reggie. Reggie was in there too, but Thurman actually had that captain title. And then it went to Don, and then Derek Jeter, like literally from Don Mattingly in 1995 to Derek Jeter in 1996. Jeter retires in 2014. Everyone in the world thinks we'll never see a captain again, including me. I said, nope. I literally walked out of the stadium. I was at Jeter's last game. I went to my dad. There'll never be another captain again. There never should be. And it's almost 8 years later, and I'm sitting here saying Aaron Judge is the face of the franchise. He's the captain of the New York Yankees. And it would be an absolute travesty if we don't resign. I don't think he'll. I'm hoping it doesn't reach free agency. I'm hoping in the week beforehand we can figure something out. But if we don't re-sign Aaron Judge, I just think it would be absolutely tragic for the fan base. I really do.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's like it's one of those things where like already murmurs are like, oh, like if Judge ends up in free agency, like the Cubs should go after him and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I've talked about this before and I've said it. I was like, everyone wants Aaron Judge, right? Anybody would love to have an Aaron Judge on his team, but even I, as a Cubs fan, want him. I still think he belongs in New York. I still think like there's just no way, right? It's and the thing is, it's kind of funny you're talking about Shohei Ohtani and like wouldn't want him on there. But the only reason I'd want him in New York, and I've said this to my buddy who's a Yankees fan, is the only reason I want him there is just because to give him more of the spotlight too. Like just because
I want Shohei Ohtani.
I get it. Yeah,
like I would love Shohei Ohtani on the New York Yankees. There's no question about it. But if it meant losing Judge,
I get what you're saying.
Same with Soto. If it meant that we had to lose Judge, I don't want to lose Judge. But bring me Ohtani. Absolutely, that's no question about that. Him, Stanton, Judge. Oh yeah.
So like the reason I want him there too is just because like it gets him like I want baseball to be as big as it can be in the world, right? And I think like Ohtani on the Yankees would just be like the biggest thing in baseball. But so and you mentioned it before and talk about Soto, and we'll finish off with that question. So like and we talked a little bit about already on this pod today and just like how we felt about the Soto deal. And I mean it's insane, obviously, and like it is one of the biggest deals ever. And just like kind of like also a little bit of the humor in it is just the fact that like Hosmer is the one that kind of was holding it up for a second. It's going to go through, but really it's kind of like what they're going to do with Hosmer.
He said
now.
No. He said no.
Yeah, he said no, but I think they just have to deal with like the money now, like what they're going to, they're like, they have to figure out how they're handling or what they're going to do with Hosmer. And it just kind of reminded me of remember The Dark Knight where like that dude tries to like scam Bruce Wayne. And Morgan Freeman's like, come on, bro. Like, that's like what Hosmer felt to me, bro. He's trying to mess us up. Like, come on, bro. No, don't do it. But no, it's going through. So that's fine. But I think this changes the whole landscape for baseball. Like anytime this, like a player like him moves, it changes like the landscape of baseball. And I think it really puts the Padres in a lot of aspects up to the par of like the Dodgers. So I want to see a series between the Dodgers and the Padres.
Oh, absolutely.
So I want to get your perspective on that trade and what you think about that move in general.
Yeah. What I said earlier, it's basically like if you moved Ken Griffey Jr. or Alex Rodriguez when they were first starting with the Mariners, but the difference is Soto has a World Series ring already. And when you put in perspective, Babe Ruth was traded from the Red Sox to the Yankees at 24 years old. Soto is 23 years old. And I mean, when you think about that, 23 years old, what he's accomplished, most of the guys that the GMs were probably talking about were about 23, 24-year-old prospects. Some of these names that were being thrown around, the prospects aren't that much younger than Juan Soto. I get that they got a massive haul, and that's going to set up their team for their next run. I think it's absolutely insane how fast the Washington Nationals declined. I think I can't stand when I see a team win and then they give up. That's not the mentality that I'd ever want from my team. And the Nationals just purely gave up. 1 year later, 2 years later, I guess you could say, with the shortened season. But I get why they had to do it. I think the Nationals are almost as big of a disaster as the Rockies when they traded Arenado and didn't re-sign Story just to re-sign Bryant. Well, you don't re-sign Bryce Harper because you have Soto. What are you going to spend on? When are you going to actually commit to one of your players? And when I say commit to your players, I mean commit to your fan base. When you sign these extensions, it's not just for the player, it's to your fans that we are going to compete. And if I'm a Nationals fan right now, I'm like, well, why am I going to go spend money for the game McKenzie's not going to be ready for another year, 2 years, or, to be a superstar or reach that level. I mean, I'd be frustrated if I was a Nationals fan. If I'm a San Diego Padres fan, they are running their team like every team would ever hope for that has not won a World Series or even been there since '98. I mean, they are all in. I don't know if we've ever seen a team. I guess you could say the Dodgers getting Scherzer and Trey Turner, they were all in, but I don't know. When you have Tatis extended 330 mil, you get Machado, and then you get Juan Soto. I don't know if we've seen a team commit like this to any degree. And it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, and all the jokes that like I've seen like of AJ Preller, like that dude doesn't sleep. I believe it. There's no way that dude sleeps. There's just no
Josh
way.
Hader, right? Josh
Yeah,
Hader.
Josh Hader too. Yeah,
If nothing else happens today, Josh Hader's the best move of the deadline.
yeah,
And he finesses them for the best relief pitcher in baseball from a first place team. I really don't.
yeah.
I don't know what's going. I don't think I personally think the Brewers realize there's no chance they're winning a championship.
Yeah. I mean, it's me and Miles always talk about just like how weak Midwest baseball is this year. Like it's just it just is, bro. It's whack. Like
AL West too, yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's just funny because both the AL Central and NL Central is just like sad. Like it doesn't like the Twins like no disrespect, but the Twins, the Guardians, like the Cardinals, the Brewers, I don't think they scare people as much as like some people try to make it out to be their fans. I guess trying to make it out to be. So it's yeah. So I don't think like they got Taylor Rogers, so I guess it's something to like kind of like have another closer. But yeah, I
They
don't.
got Pablo too from
Oh yeah,
Baltimore.
exactly. Yeah, so I think like whoever wins the Central in both leagues are probably first round exit anyways. But we'll see, and I think yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, so we'll finish it off right there, man. I really appreciate your time, and man, I think we had such a good time. I really hope you come on again, for sure.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
Incredible.
thank you so much, bro.
Thank you guys for having me. When
course.
postseason comes along, just let me know.
Oh heck yeah!
Yeah, please.
I'm gonna be sleeping on 161st, so
Hey, there you go. Hey, we'll interview you live on Yankee Stadium.
I was about to say that I was gonna be down there today, so if I got there early enough, I would have done it right in front of the stadium. So next time I'll do it outside the stadium.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Man.
Thank you.
All right.